Welcome back to JB Reviews. As you guys know, I did a video on what I loved about the 2024 GMC HD. In this video, I'm going to tell you what I hate about it. Let's get into the video. Now, the very first point I want to make is I know that GM is not going to fix any of these for 2024 for the refresh because I built a Chevy. Now, I did not build a dually because this is kind of around the dually, but it's really for the whole GMC lineup for HDs. By the way, there's a GMC, this is a 2024 plane behind me. I'm not sure whose video this is, but I did not set that up. That's just funny that we're doing this video. But number one, this is the first point I have. This is for the dual rear wheel primarily, but it would be good for long bed, single rear wheel, and standard bed too. But there is no option to get a larger fuel tank. I drove 2,000 miles cross country towing my trailer. I stopped 8 times. It would be nice to be able to get something from the manufacturer for a larger fuel tank. And I'm thinking maybe 50 gallons, 55 gallons, or even maybe 60 gallons. Now, obviously you guys know, if you get a bigger fuel tank, you're carrying more fuel, that will take away from your payload, but you know what? I'm okay with that because when you're towing, especially cross country, that would limit how many times you would have to stop. And let's face it, Ford has a 48 gallon tank available if you get a long bed truck or dually. Also, Ram has available a 50 gallon fuel tank option. So that's why I think this is a bad thing for GM, and I hate this about this truck because I feel as though they should have optioned that for this model year, especially going into a refresh. Now my next point is geared around the transmission. So as you guys know, for 2024, GM is putting the Allison 10-speed behind the gas engine. They've always had that same transmission behind the diesel. My only issue with GM is you cannot see what gear you're in inside of the truck. Now this is important to me because sometimes the transmission, especially if you're in Tahoma, will lock out 9th or 10th gear. I noticed that a couple times on my trip because when I was driving, especially going above 75 miles an hour, I noticed that the RPMs were kind of high. And so it stayed consistently like that for a lot of that trip. Now I was kind of going up an incline, but it would be nice to see actually what gear I'm in as opposed to just guessing. And so if you buy a Ford, they actually give you a nice display on the cluster. It shows you what gear you're in for the 10-speed. Ram, you can set it up 2 different ways. You can either put it in manual mode and lock in the highest gear and it will shift as you drive, or you can set up in the cluster where you can see it at all times. But for the most part, with both of the competitors, you can see what gear you're in. I absolutely hate that about GM, that they do not give you more information in that cluster for your gears. Now, as far as the third point goes, this is kind of along the same lines as the second point. By the way, my camera was zoomed in and I just noticed it, so I just fixed that, so I apologize. But here we go. This third point I have is for the rear end. Now, if you buy a Ford or if you buy a Ram, especially for a dually, you can change the rear axle to a lower gear. Now, on the Ford side of the house for single rear wheel, they do have a 331 and a 355 option available for those trucks. But for Ford F350 and Ram 3500 dually, you can get a 410. With GM, they give you the 342. Now the 342 is a good axle ratio because that higher gear does give you better fuel economy. And as Matthew Anderson is going to say in the comment section, the transmission does the rest for you. But here's my thoughts. You don't need a 410, but I do think you would benefit from a 373. And I'm only basing it off of the time when I was going up a steep grade towing my 5th wheel. And at that time, we were living in it full time. So it was about 15,000 pounds plus the truck. So figure 15 plus 9,000 pounds, because that's probably about what we were doing basically at the time. So with that being said, in my opinion, it would be nice to see a 373 gear, at least for the dually, because if you're towing 25 or the max of 30,000 pounds with that truck, I feel like it would struggle a little bit. Now, granted, it is going to have more horsepower and torque. The other two do have lower gearing. So GM, let's face it, you're kind of lagging behind in that regard, especially for people who live in areas like I live now, and they have really steep grades, and they go up steep grades for miles at a time. So fix that. So let's talk about the fourth point. This one may not be as important because it is around the interior, and because it's an HD truck, this is not as important. However, with the 2024 model year, they do have a Denali Ultimate trim. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of video footage I got of this beautiful interior. I personally like saddle lighter interior colors over just black. However, if you are getting a blacked out truck, which they will be offering for 2024, it seems like this is the only interior color that you can get. Now again, for me, I don't mind that, but I think that it would kind of collide with the blackout appearance that GM is looking to do. So in my opinion, I don't like that about this truck. I think that they should have offered a second interior color option at the very least. And I think they would have had an edge over Ram and really Ford because they only offer a black interior. So they should have had a second interior color. I know that might be reaching a little bit because I do like the lighter interior, but if I were to get a black truck, I think I would just go ahead and get the whole truck blacked out. Now my fifth point is going to be a little controversial, a little bit. And I haven't really talked to you guys about this on my truck, so this is your first time kind of hearing it in this video. Maybe I'll do a separate video and go a little bit deeper into it for you. But my fifth point is the tow mirrors need to be revised for 2024 in my opinion, and they're not. They're the same tow mirrors that they've been using. And on top of that, they do not have a power convex. So coming from my Ram, that was something I liked, because if you flip the mirrors out, you basically can power adjust the convex, which is that lower part of the mirror, the glass. That way you can see the tires of your trailer, which is very helpful. Now, again, I'll go over this in another video, but the tow mirrors on the GM are nice. I won't even call them nice. They're really bulky, but they're not great with visibility. And someone had asked me in a comment section a while back, did I like the tow mirrors? And I laughed because when they asked you that, around that time, I almost wrecked my GMC. And I wanted to do a video on it, I just have forgotten about it. But I really think that GM should revise these mirrors because they're not great. And I will go into more detail in another video. But for now, we'll just say they need to be revised. Only 3 more points to go, guys. 3 more points, and then that way we're done here. I'm done beating up on GMC. Now, this one may not matter to some people because I feel like this fad is starting to die off anyways, personally. But my 6th point is they do not have a blackout for the dually. Listen, all I need to say is Ram Night Edition dually. That's all I need to say.
Perfect.
You see what I mean? I think you had that same feeling I had when you first saw it, especially in that setup. Big tires, and I love the new wheel design on the GMCs. Like, they have an 18-inch wheel. They went from 17s to 18s, and they gave it like a different design. It looks more modern and up to date, but I know for a fact they're not going to do a blackout for those wheels. And if they did, whoa, that would be amazing. But we know they're not going to do it. And I would love to see somebody order a dually and obviously get those wheels powder coated black and then put 35s or 37s on it, lift it a little bit, maybe just level it. And I would probably fly out to get some footage on that because that's probably one of the baddest trucks on the market, especially if it's a Denali Ultimate with the new grille and everything. I think it would look great. But that's what I hate about the GM. I think that they had an opportunity to really hit hard with that new wheel design and give a black appearance for the dually. And I think that a lot of people who bought Rams would definitely jump over to GMC to get the new Ultimate. Man, I'm getting tired, guys. I only have 2 more points and then I'll let you guys go, okay? So this next one is probably not going to resonate with a lot of people. This is something that I've always liked, and here it is. There's no panoramic sunroof for the refresh. Now again, listen, the panoramic sunroof is probably heavy, which means it's going to take away from your payload. But if you do travel at night, or if you do travel a lot inside your car, especially if you want more natural light, I love how much the panoramic sunroof opens up the interior. When I had this 2023 Toyota Tundra for a few days, I really enjoyed having that extra light come into the cockpit, especially when it was really cloudy outside. So my opinion is, I wish that they would offer a panoramic sunroof, because in the HD segment, Ford is the only one doing it. So I think this was a great time for GM to step up and really jump ahead of Ram, because Ram obviously is still using the same small sunroof, and theirs is really cheap because the visor that they use is just really cheap, not a good quality, and it does deteriorate over time. But here's the last point, and I think this is something that I've kind of tested with you guys a few times with the Ram. And are you ready for this? There's no air suspension option out back. GM does a good job with their rear suspension. They do provide, I think, 4 leafs in the main pack, and then they give you 3 overload leaf springs. And on the single rear wheel, it is different from the dually. And from the single rear wheel 1 ton, it is different from the 3/4 ton. With Ford, the F350 single rear wheel has the same suspension as the dually, and you can still get the same suspension on the F250 as the single rear wheel F350 and dually. So for me, I like to see a difference, because obviously the dually gives you so much more capacity. However, it would be nice to see a air suspension option, because what I have found, that air suspension does help soften the ride. Now don't get me wrong, a GM pickup ride is probably the best. I haven't really driven a dually in a long time, so maybe what I'll have to do is I'll have to get back out there and drive one and see if the ride is comparable. But from what I've found in the past, GMC trucks do squat a good bit, especially when you start getting into that 3,000 pound pin weight for a trailer. And it would be nice to be able to lift up that load a little bit when the truck does start to squat or sag. Lastly, one thing they could have done to make the GMC a little bit better than Ram is on the air suspension for the 3500 with the leaf springs. They could have allowed it to lower down. That way they could lower the bed of the truck or the hitches, either in the bed or on the conventional hitch. That way it makes it easier to hook up to your trailer. But apart from that, those are my 8 things I hate about the new GMC. And quite honestly, there's a few of them on there that I think that they really should have stepped up and did. Let me repeat them. Larger fuel tank, and allowing you to see the gears in the cluster, and revised tow mirrors. Those are probably my 3 major ones. If GM were to call me today, those would be the 3 that I would definitely recommend that they do. That's probably the biggest things I don't like about my truck so far. And it would be nice to be able to see these changes, especially for the refresh. But I hope this video was helpful. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure the bell notifications are on, because I am starting to post more videos. And if you have anything that you would like to see on the new GMC, be sure to put it down in the comment section. We'd love to see it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.